I would like to call this meeting of the West Dallas Wesquonky School Board to order. Ms. Carr, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Suzette, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Burns,
Present.
Mr. Eustruck,
Here.
Mrs. Kaiser,
Here.
Mr. Keller,
Here.
Ms. Deal,
Here.
Mrs. Carr,
Here.
Mr. Sickett,
Present.
Mrs. Justum. You see, are you remote? No, okay, let me know if she joins, please. And then President Lee.
Here. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do we have any modifications to the agenda this evening? Dr. Lexman, we can't hear. I presume no, Dr. Lexman? No? Okay, great. All right, so then we will move on to our public comments. As a reminder, everyone who wants to make a public comment has 3 minutes to address the board. You must state your name and your address, and the board cannot have any discourse, conversation, or reply to anything that you say. And a response will be provided by the next regular school board meeting, either at that meeting or maybe responded to you privately, depending on the nature of your comments. So for those of you listening in Zoom, if there's anyone who wants to make a public comment, you will need to place your name in the chat, and then I will call upon you for that. But we'll start out with Mr. Steve Broadwell.
That's right, Steve Broadwell, 12965 West Ohio Court in New Berlin. Besides my past comments on your CRT implementation and mask, the Gestapo-like approach following our other district activities that are misguided. Library books are available to our middle and high school students in this district, like Out of Darkness, among others. Many of us have seen parents read with disgust from these books at other school board meetings, with school board members actually trying to silence them due to their pornographic nature. One UW-Oshkosh professor was prohibited from reading aloud from these books at the Wisconsin Republican Convention. Yet you make these available for our kids. Your transgender policy states that the needs and concerns of each student will be assessed on an individual basis with consultations with parents where appropriate. Why would you not automatically engage parents in this life-changing decision that is more often than not later regrettable? It states biological sex is a label a person is assigned at birth, often based on a medical professional's interpretation of the newborn's physical characteristics. Interpretation. In other states, that a student who is transgender will be permitted access to the men's or women's segregated restrooms that correspond to the gender identity that the student consistently asserts at school. So it appears you're okay with boys going into the girls' locker rooms. Your referendum sales pitch for the district's residents to cough up an extra $200 per $100,000 of house value for the next 25 years falls on deaf ears when considering some of the sloppy expenses you have in your books. How about getting rid of your equity director, whatever that person does, replacing your ultra-expensive health insurance and selling some buildings for starters? Now you have an SEL, or social emotional learning survey, in the works that our kids have to fill out. Proponents of SEL call for schools to focus less on academic content where merit and test scores are racist, according to Ibram Kendi, and more on the correct attitudes, beliefs, mindsets, opinions, and behaviors of students, and see it as a vehicle for CRT implementation. If this is guided by CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, and which trumpets this as an opportunity to turn impressionable students into leftist activists. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? In CASEL's June 2020 webinar entitled SEL as a Lever for Equity and Social Justice, they claimed SEL should be used to elevate favored students based primarily on race over disfavored students. And as requested, I'd like a copy of that survey, which I think Suzette is working on.
10
Many
seconds,
of us
Mr.
feel
Broadwell.
that there is a lot of nonsense going on in this district, and perhaps we need a change, such as is occurring in many districts around this country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Broadwell. That is the only person that I had signed up for in-person public comments. Is there anyone else who did not sign up who would like to address the board? Seeing none, I'm looking at the chat now to see if anyone had signed up who is viewing via Zoom. If there's anyone who did not sign up who joined Zoom late, if you want to address the board, we're doing public comments right now. So please put your name in the chat if you would like to address the board. All right, seeing none, I am going to close public comments, and we will move on to item number 7, the superintendent's report. Dr. Lexman?
Can you hear me? I'll start with 7.1. Sorry, wrong presentation. Our return to in-person learning. I just have to move you guys. Okay. So like we do with each of these, just to update everyone where we are, and just so everybody understands why I'm not in the room this evening. I am in isolation because I have a little medical procedure later this week, and I had to do a COVID test, and now I have to stay home until after the procedure on Thursday. So with that, oh, I'm sorry, I added something here and then I didn't show up. So the guiding principles, we'll talk about our health metrics. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the internal metrics. We're starting to add some other things that are appearing in the media around schools, and in particular quarantine numbers. Again, where we are with vaccinations and next steps. So our guiding principles, as always, safety and well-being, and we still focus on that. Learning that works, being responsive and flexible, and we're constantly right now adapting kind of how we're managing testing, and we don't have the perfect solution yet, but we think we're getting there, and bringing in additional support to support our nurses. And then with everything, is it practical for us to implement? So where we are with our data, and I just got these minutes before the meeting started from our health department, so the September 21st data, and you can see that generally right now things are not moving in the right direction. And so things have increased except one of the positivity rates. And so they're still within a similar range from week to week right now, but inching up just a little bit. In terms of internal metrics, and this has been added now to the health metrics dashboard. So we're continuing to track district positivity case rate. And that had a little blip going up, and I was getting a little concerned last week. And as of today, we're at 0.32%, so that's encouraging, so we stay in the green. We're going to start to add quarantine counts, so the total number of students and staff combined in quarantine. We'll also start to track it by school, and so if we see an internal positivity rate start inching up and getting 3% is where we would turn our indicator yellow. 5% is where we would start to close classrooms, grade levels, or schools. But we're going to also kind of monitor that with the quarantine count, and that's been covered quite a bit in media recently. We did ask the team, so that's the nurses, Aaron Norris, to work on this. Sue Miller will also be helping with this and adding into that big spreadsheet where we track everything that's also publicly available, just so the board is aware that we're adding that additional metric. Again, the mask wearing requirements continue. And one of the things I did ask of all school leaders this week in a communication is that, yes, we're getting some pushback from members of the public coming into events. So these are athletic events or conferences, and or some members of the public are simply refusing. And so what I've advised our leaders to do is that we don't want to get into verbal and certainly not physical altercations with individuals that are disrespecting what we're trying to do to keep everybody safe. But we don't ignore the fact that somebody's not wearing a mask either. So every person, every time, should be reminded And we offer masks and we we remind, and I think that's probably about as far as we're going to be able to go at this point. But just so that we're doing the best we can to reinforce the mask requirements. COVID testing in schools, this is where we're adapting a little bit. And so we are collecting samples through our nurses right now of students where we are showing symptoms. And again, we contact parents and get permission. What we're going to be adding is a drive-up option at Irving between 9 and 11 every school day. And that is not up and running just yet. Originally, we were going to have our nurses do it, and so there'd be kind of like a nurse assigned for those 2 hours each day. But we're just the capacity of our nurses. Again, what's practical for us to implement is one of the guiding principles, and so we're going to be contracting with NOAA Labs to do it. It doesn't cost us anything more to have NOAA Labs do it, but they then have to hire clinicians to cover that, and so they're in that process. And what I learned from Caitlin just a few minutes ago is they're actually working through background checks. So we're hoping that drive-up option, which is no appointment necessary, a parent staff member pulls up, there's a phone number to call, a clinician comes out, collects the sample, and I'll go. And that hopefully will be starting next week, Monday, which is October 4th. And then next steps. Again, we're going to recommunicate the COVID testing opportunity once that is finalized. The incentive program to encourage student vaccinations, and that'll grow into the elementary schools. And then, just like I said, we're monitoring health metrics, in particular adding to the internal metrics. And then what I've added to that 4th bullet from 2 weeks ago is we're still waiting for the OSHA guidance on requiring vaccinations of employees. And so that's something our attorneys have advised that we should wait till their rules come out and then move forward with some of their advice from there. And so that's the in-person learning update. With that, I'll move to 7.2, the legislative update. And there's a lot here. I'm not going to read all of this, but hit on some of the highlights. I think the point of it is that there's quite a bit of activity in K-12 related bills that are starting to move. And we've talked in previous meetings about the reading assessment. There's legislation moving on limiting or having to get permission from parents to include lessons and activities on race and gender stereotypes. And then new mandates on posting learning materials. Some of these things, I think, are just kind of in the same kind of hyper-politicized efforts around K-12 schooling right now, because the last one that I just cited, making all of our learning materials available to the public, well, they already are. Everything is public documents, public record. I'm not sure what this particular legislation would accomplish that's different. One in here that I think will be interesting is that AB 378, making school district and school financial information available to the public, and it's intended to make it more user-friendly. And I think that actually would be helpful for the public in general, because the way we track it that's required by DPI, by the state of Wisconsin, is not all that digestible unless you spend a lot of time with it. So there may be some value that gets added through some of this legislation. And so we're going to continue to watch. The one around race and gender and sexual orientation fascinates me because the language itself right now, and I'm being a little facetious here, but I was a social studies teacher, and if I'm going to introduce a lesson that shares that George Washington married Martha Washington, or Martha, that later became Martha Washington, we're now potentially in the realm of discussing sexual orientation. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if this moves and how they really clarify what we have to inform parents of and what we don't in terms of the lessons and the activities that are described there. And that's AB 562. The rest, I'll highlight here that the SAA, so one of our alliances and groups that we belong to, opposes the cursive writing bill. Because some of this is because these are unfunded mandates, so they come along with expectations and requirements, but not additional dollars to hire teachers or add additional time in the school day. Opposes the reading assessment bill, again, because it's so prescriptive and another unfunded mandate, but also supports the Tobacco 21. And we are seeing more challenges with vaping, so this would start to cover vaping as well. At the federal level, we have already talked about this, the Secondary Emergency Connectivity Fund Program application window, and that's opening, and so we're gonna investigate that. It really is of greater advantage, I think, for more rural areas. And then the president's plan to combat COVID. So this is, again, ongoing work, just like our own, to try to manage and stay safe and implement all the mitigation practices. And so down at the bottom, there are the 6 things that he has outlined. So vaccinations, and we're going to continue to promote that, and we're really looking forward to the opportunity when younger students can get vaccinated, and we're starting to explore kind of in-school vaccine clinics. Further protection for the vaccinated, so that we continue to wear masks and keeping each other safe as much as we possibly can. We're working to keep our schools open, and that's why I think the masks are helping. Increasing testing, just like we're doing. Protecting the economic recovery, and then improving care for those with COVID-19 are his 6 points. So that's 7.2, the legislative update. And with that, I'll go to 7.3, the Board of Education recognition. So at Dotke, I'd like to recognize its entire staff for a great start to a very different year with a very different student body. We're proud to welcome 45 new freshmen and 25 new sophomores into our new PBL school. One specifically interesting story is about a new 10th grader to Dotke and West Allis, West Milwaukee. This young man is a resident of West Allis, but he was previously attending an online school in an open enrolled out student. He and his family chose to give WAWM, give us a try, and he attended summer school in order to get prepared for his transition back. Well, the summer, all high school summer school was located at Dotke, and students learned through deeper learning and project-based learning. So during summer school, the student was so engaged and excited about their learning that his family enrolled him full-time at Dotke, and he is loving school again. So that's a great little story about some of the innovative work we're doing and how it starts to bring back at least one student for us so far. At Longfellow, we'd like to recognize Kathy Boyd, Sam Griffin, Kaylee Johnson, who stepped up to keep our AM Action program open for an entire week when we were short-staffed. Such amazing teamwork to meet the needs of our communities. Teachers truly have the heart of a Longfellow lion. At Walker, we'd like to recognize a person from the Walker staff that works behind the scenes to keep the facilities running smoothly and looking beautiful. Jackie Flores, our custodian, has done such an amazing job keeping our building clean and well-maintained. Our staff, students, and families have noted how beautiful the building looks, and that is because of Jackie's dedication and hard work. So thank you, Jackie. We appreciate you and are so glad that you are part of the Walker team. And then from facilities, from Steve Eichmann, I would like to recognize Tim Detloff, who recently retired from our West Allis, West Milwaukee School District. Tim served in a variety of roles, all within the facilities department. He began his career in May 1985 as a sub-cleaner. Tim quickly advanced through the custodial ranks. He became a cleaner in June of 1985 and then a custodian 1 in January of 1987. A short 15 months later, Tim became a custodian 2, a position he held for the next 12 years. Tim became a custodian 4 in July of 2010, and he held that position until November of 2019 when he became the custodial services specialist. The majority of his time was spent at Nathan Hale High School, but he also served our district at Irving and Walker. I've had the pleasure of working with Tim over the past 2+ years, and I've worked closely with him as he served in 2 different positions. During this time, not only have I been impressed with his knowledge of facility care, processes, and his passion for his work, but the many interpersonal characteristics which bode well for his success. A few of the characteristics include a vast knowledge of all aspects of facility care and products, and the ability to see the big picture, willingness to work with me at my pace, a strong work ethic and positive can-do attitude, effective written and verbal communication skills, strong follow-up, and Steve has in parentheses, I can't say enough about this, a willingness to listen, be patient, and offer creative solutions, and his ability to work well with anyone regardless of their position. And in closing, I'd like to thank Tim for his years of service and dedication to our students and staff, and wish him well as he begins his new journey. And then finally, from Leadership and Learning, from Deidre Raymer, we'd like to thank the following staff for all their work on getting our secondary ALEKS licenses rolled over and ready for this year. We're grateful for all their hard work in getting this resource into the hands of our learners quickly. So at Lane, Terry Skonecki; at FLW, Julia Niles; at West, Rachel Kirschman, Bradley Valona, and Tim Landwehr; at Hale, Joshua Jockman; and at Central, Carrie Moreau; and at our Deeper Learning Virtual Academy, Melissa Sikora and Jonathan Jacobs. And then going on to 7.4, just some quick updates and information items. So first, response to public comments from September 13th. So there was an inquiry about how much our medical director is paid, and Mr. Molling in his public comment noted that he couldn't find a salary in the publicly available databases that report and make available to everyone, what public employees make in the state of Wisconsin. And the reason why medical directors aren't there is because they're all volunteer positions, right? So we don't pay our medical directors. No districts pay their medical directors. It's a voluntary position. So that's why it's not in any public databases. 2 residents inquired again on September 13th of why we continue to use We a Trust. And I verbally responded to that at the regular school board meeting on July 12th, but I'll highlight it again. We a Trust continues to be a good partner for us. So now, a year ago, more than a year ago, they provided a very small increase for this year, which was 1.3%. When increases for healthcare in our area were typically in the double digits, and they provided a rate cap increase of not more than 8.5% starting January 1st, right? And that's the maximum it would go to. We're still waiting to hear where it will actually go. But similar to the changes in the retiree health care plan, we will explore cost-saving opportunities when it's time to renew. And so with the retiree portion of our health plan, we did through Hayes solicit bids and found, I think, some really interesting solutions. But it should be noted that when you go to bid, in general, companies are going to respond at low rates at first, and then you're going to start to see the double-digit increases coming in the second year, third year, fourth year you stay with them. And going to bid and changing providers also comes with significant investment of time and resources, and it's disruptive for employees when you start changing healthcare providers and potentially even doctors. And so when you weigh all of those things together, it goes back to what I started with. WIAS continues to be a good partner for us. But again, we're going to look for cost savings at the appropriate times. And then in our facility master planning, so we have one more of the public information sessions. That's going to be on Monday, October 4th at West Milwaukee from 6 to 7:30. We'll start in the auditorium. Face masks are required, but we are arranging a separate room similar to board meetings now, where if someone refuses to follow the mask requirement, and at least there is a space where they can participate and keep everybody else safe or safer. Now, the format of this is about a 30-minute presentation, and then there's tables set up with different kind of content areas related to the facility master plan. So for people that are really interested, so their facility conditions and needs. So Steve Eichmann is answering those questions. Design and construction management, Bray Architects and C.G. Schmidt Construction Management are available to answer questions. Caitlin is doing any responses to questions around budget, finance, and tax impact. And then modernizing for hands-on learning, that's Deidre Raymer is available. And then to just close out the superintendent's report today, I'm going to turn the screen over to Deidre. And it's another one of these examples of kind of the really cool, interesting work we're doing. And so Deidre, if you want to introduce us to the George Kuros and our student.
Good evening, everyone. I'm zooming in from a conference, so excuse it if you hear a little bit of background noise. I tried to find the quietest place I could. So this was an opportunity that one of our students who recently graduated from DOTKI had. He is interested in podcasting. He has his own podcast. And so as we were working together, I connected him with George to say, well, George has got a pretty professional podcast and maybe he could give you some advice. And it's turned into quite the lengthy connection between the two of them and just a real appreciation for the work we continue to do in West Allis, West Milwaukee, as well as just opening doors and windows for our students. And so I will let the videos speak for themselves. There are 2 of them, so I'm going to play one, and then I'll jump over and play the other one.
Who's one of the first people that come to your mind? And I know you told me before you're going to have trouble picking because there's so many, but like who's one that, inspired you and why?
I have to say Miss Bitters. So she was my crew teacher at DOTKI Project-Based Learning High School. We're different now. But she was my crew teacher my first year there. And then we really didn't have a relationship in the beginning because I just only seen her for 30 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. And I knew who she was, and I knew like she had an effect on students, and I always heard her name buzzing around the school, but I never really thought to reach out and try to build my own connection. But my second year, during the pandemic, I had her every day, like 3 times a day, I think, because I was taking a lot of English credits because I finished everything else. So I was just stacking up on English credits. And she honestly changed my life. She gave me a new perspective on who I was as a person, as well as my ability. She helped me believe in myself because I came back to a crossroads. Like I was down, and then I got that confidence back within my ability, and then I was down again. I want to credit that to the pandemic, sadly, but having her there and throughout that time was amazing because she just pushed me every day. It wasn't even like she was a teacher. It was more like she was like a mentor, and she knew I had the ability when it came to my scholastic, you know, things I had to do, whether it's classwork, homework, projects, or speaking on behalf of my school. It was honestly like she tended to the things that I really wanted to work on to push me to be better in life. She allowed me to be free in my academics because she understood my ability, and that's one of the things that I love her dearly for, because I've had a lot of teachers where when I feel like, and I know that I'm 2 weeks ahead and they want me to work 2 weeks behind, and it's like that never worked for me, and it always made me fail and perform worse than I actually would be performing if I was allowed to work at my pace. So her giving me freedom within the classroom and tending to my life outside of school really changed my life. So she's definitely the one I have to speak of for sure.
And that when you're talking about that, I think like, and this is one of the reasons I was so excited to have you is, talking about a student, because a lot of times we as educators say like, oh, relationships are so important. And I've actually had some pushback saying like, oh no, it's all about academics and things like that. I'm like, we're not ignoring academics. It's just, you have to start with that relationship, and it obviously pushed you to be so much better. So what was the teacher's name?
Bitters, Kaylee Bitters.
I actually know Kaylee Bitters. I'm pretty sure I know that name.
Okay, so that was the first of the two. Those are available on YouTube. They are shared on our district social media, as well as we can share out the link on our homepage so people have access to it. But he goes on to talk about administrators in our schools that were impactful to him in his time and in his journey with us. And we want to especially thank Kaylee, who was featured on that one as really such a highlight in that time. And I shared that podcast video with Kaylee. I shared it with the other teachers that were mentioned, and the number of them that went on to say, wow, I really needed to hear that this year. We know that the work we're doing this year is harder than ever. And our teachers are just doing amazing, amazing things. So that reminder of that work came at just the right time for quite a few of our educators who are doing just beautiful things with students and needed to hear where that has an impact. Okay, I will pull up the other one. So there was a 2-part series. The first one is when he answers 3 questions about the life impact that school and teachers and individuals have had on him. And the other one was around being his authentic self and how school assisted with that. So I will pull that one up now.
Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a student, when you're talking about like education, like what's one piece of advice you would want people to like walk away with? Thinking about the 2021-2022 school year, from the perspective of someone who's just recently, finishing school.
Okay, so this might be a little different. So it's not directed toward students nor teachers. Actually, it's the higher ups, the people who create our curriculum and the ways that we have to learn. Change is inevitable. Change happens every day. I look outside every day and I see my grass getting taller. It gets taller because I didn't cut it. I didn't make a difference to it. And the big thing is you have to do something in order to see change. But change can happen on its own. And change isn't necessarily always a good thing. And when it comes to school, things have changed, but not necessarily in the way in which that I believe personally that it should have changed. School is based off of a format in which I believe, is built for a past time, a different age, the industrial age, getting people ready to work in assembly lines and work in car manufacturing shops and things of that nature. That's, I feel as if, how we learn today. And the world is a world that's filled with technology and so many advancements. And I feel the only thing that hasn't advanced in the past 100 years is our educational system. So to anyone with the influence on that, take time to look and really assess the situation and ask yourself, are we doing the children of today, or my bad, are we doing the children of tomorrow, the people of the future, are we doing them a disservice now? And if you're honest, you'll say yes, because we're not preparing our students and our youth for the future and what's to come. We're preparing them for the past, and we can't go back, we can only go forward. So I leave you with that. I ask you to change, and I ask you to assess the current situation and make the necessary changes for development and greater results. That's it. Just change. That's it.
You know, so I don't know if you know this, like that's kind of, that's what my focus is in my books, Innovator's Mindset and Innovate Outside the Box. And one of the things that why I wanted you on here is because I know you've had so many great teachers, and you've had so many great teachers that have obviously made an impact on you, and you talked about them on our other podcast. And one of the things that I really appreciated about you and what I see from, the people I've worked in with West Allis is they helped you become your authentic self, not try to change you, but, bring out who you are. And I'm watching you, I'm an old guy that likes basketball shoes, been in education for 20 plus years, and you made a difference on me. And I think part of that, part of your impact, and part of the impact that schools have is they helped you find success in a way that was meaningful to you, and tapping into your passions, and you embodying that, you are actually making such a difference on the people around you. And so it was just awesome to talk to you. And when you have your podcast, I'm expected to, I'll be.
And again, that's another one that has, that one's about 35 minutes long. So it is available on YouTube, and it's available on, again, our social media and our district website, but it really speaks to the work we have been doing in West Allis, West Milwaukee, the work that we continue to strive for in West Allis, West Milwaukee, and why that work is so important. So Deontay speaks a lot publicly about his personal situation, and he wasn't always in the best of positions, and school frequently really was the place that helped him find himself. And he's always an amazing young man, regardless of his time in our schools, but his time in our schools really helped him to define his own pathway and be ready to live life on his own terms. So he, as well as so much of the work we do every day, is just a shining example of why that matters and why it's so important. And that is it.
Great. Thank you, and thanks for sharing that, Deidre. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I will move on to item 8, the board reports. We're starting with item 8.1, our review of the board calendar. So today is the September 27th, 6 p.m. We have a regular Board of Education meeting. Then on Monday, October 11th at 6 p.m. we have a regular Board of Education meeting. So everyone enjoy another Monday off next week. Then on Monday, October 18th at 6 p.m. we have a communication committee workshop with first of our school showcases. So that should be a good one. And then on Monday, October 25th at 6 p.m. We have our regular Board of Education meeting, which also includes our final budget and tax levy. All right, so let's move on to item 8.2, our board committee reports, starting with our life readiness through college and career preparation. Mr. Ustruck.
So we really do not have anything to report because we did not meet in September. We met twice in August. So moving forward, though, our next agenda item will be professional development plan for the year, including micro-credentials.
Oh, very good. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ustruck about his committee for his upcoming meeting? Or any things that you would like Mr. Ustruck to possibly consider in his next upcoming meeting? Bill, you weren't here when we talked about it, but we're gonna add that to the end of these reports if board members have something they would like to maybe have your committee consider.
All right, outstanding.
Anything? No? Okay, all right, thank you very much. Looking forward for the next report after your next meeting. Then we'll move on to our Financial Stability and Efficiency Committee, which was gonna be Ms. Justum.
I'm gonna,
Jane, you're doing it?
Yep.
Okay, all right, Ms. Carr, please.
I am. Okay, well, we actually did meet for quite a bit of time, and so I have a lot to share. So Caitlin started the meeting by sharing the enrollment update with us, and as expected, our enrollment slightly increased. As of September 21st, 2021, we had 7,438 students enrolled. Caitlin then informed us of 3 big benefits projects that are happening simultaneously in order to create an improved experience for our active employees. Now, the first one is a voluntary worksite benefit. And I wasn't sure what that meant, and then she started to explain it, and the minute Caitlin mentioned the name Aflac as one of the potential carriers, it became clearer to us that this voluntary benefit would be additional medical coverage for employees at their own expense. Second, the carrier we choose would also provide a benefits administration system at no cost to our district. This would allow us to move our insurance application process into the 21st century by providing a digital platform that allows employees to enroll themselves and their dependents in the benefits in which they are eligible. So no more paper pencil and no more manual data entry. Then thirdly, with the benefits project, the carrier would also provide a benefits education consultant called an iBenefit. And the company offers meetings with benefit experts for employees. Caitlin will provide a workshop for the board so the entire board can hear the details provided in this committee meeting. We also learned that the benefits handbook is beautiful and complete and can be found on the employee benefits section on our website. The next agenda item was about the Anthem Medicare Advantage plan that the board approved of on September 13th. Caitlin informed us that they are starting the implementation process and that they will be contacting every retiree with the goal of having letters sent out by the week of October 4th. There is a change in the language in regards to the retiree and spouse reaching age 65. And we will be taking action tonight, so I'm going to let Caitlin explain that revision of the language when that comes up on the agenda later. And finally, there was a frequently asked questions section that was added to the facility planning page on the website in regards to our ESSER funds. And this will allow any community member to submit a question.
All right, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Jane or the committee about anything she reported on? Or anything that you would like the committee to consider moving forward? No? All right, well, thank you very much for the reports from Mr. Eastuck and Ms. Carr. I will move on then to item 8.3. Are there any board member reports of community events? Yes, Ms. Deal.
So I just wanted to say, just a shout out, thank you to Ms. DeVell at Nathan Hale. She actually invited her fashion techniques class, did a country project, and they invited school board members to come and check it out. They did like a little gallery, and the students had an opportunity to basically talk about their country and the fashions and all the research that they did. So it was just a really fun opportunity to kind of see what the kids are doing in the classes. And so yeah, I just want to say thank you to Ms. Duvall and her class for allowing me to come and check out their projects.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have anything they would like to share? I would like to share, I was able to meet with the Deputy Secretary of Education and her team, along with a number of area superintendents over this last week to basically have a frank discussion about difficulties that have been had in trying to reopen schools. So I just wanted to, it was I think a very good conversation. We were able to provide some of the concerns and issues that some of the districts, area districts, including ourselves, have run into, and share some successes as well with the Deputy Secretary about how we were actually able to open schools successfully, and then trying to be able to best serve the students that we have in our district. So I was very honored to be able to participate in that meeting. All right, if there's nothing else, then we'll move on to item 9, which is our consent agenda. We have item 9.1, approval of minutes from our September 13th, 2021 budget hearing and regular board meeting. Item 9.2, our employment summary. Item 9.3, our supplementary contracts. And item 9.4, our financial summary. Does anyone need anything separated out? If not, I would look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Okay, we'll move on to our action items, starting with item 10.1, Central High School Pom Dance Team Extended Travel to Orlando, Florida, February 2022. Are they on Zoom?
Hi, Emma, and then I know Justin is on here, who is our athletic director, and then Michelle Shearer from Nathan Hale is also on the call tonight, because this is a very exciting opportunity for our teams. So Emma, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, awesome. So I personally went on this trip when I was in high school with Michelle, and it is just a great opportunity. We do a lot of work with Badgerette. I personally attended their camps all throughout high school, and then now have taken my the past 2 seasons of my teams to their camps as well. And then we do about 4 to 5 competitions with them throughout the year. So it's just awesome to build relationships with them, and they really promote leadership and team bonding and all of that kind of stuff. So basically how we qualified for Disney was through attending camp this summer and then attending their Midwest Grand Championship. Both of our teams got invited to go on the trip, which is really exciting. And then the trip, to the extent of the trip, it's 4 or 5 days, 5 days down in Disney World, and we pretty much dance every single day, which is super awesome. And then you get to be down there with your team and also experience all those things together.
Okay. I don't know if the other coach wants to say anything as well, or Justin.
And then Michelle could probably elaborate on that if she's.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, there she is.
Here she is. Hi, Michelle.
Do we need to do them together, or?
We have them listed separately, so probably she should take action that way, I would say,
Okay.
since
So
they're listed that way.
Both the
Michelle, you're
requests,
muted.
both the requests will be the same for both Central and Hale.
Yeah, it's the same trip, but I do believe, Justin, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that both schools are going together at the same time.
That would be accurate, yes.
So it's an exciting opportunity that's expanded to both comprehensive high schools. Michelle, did you want to add anything? You're muted.
Sorry. I was just going to say, yeah, that it is definitely been an amazing experience for the dancers. They take, it's mandatory that they take a dance class while they're down there. They dance in the parade. We have practices. It's definitely, it'll be really exciting this year with Central being invited and, and with Hale. And then what we do is through Badgerette, there could be 100-200, dancers there. And it's really neat because we're all part of Southeastern Wisconsin, and it's a really, really neat experience to see all of these dancers all as one on a team and, take it very seriously. And they've done a great, great job to earn this.
Okay, are there any questions about this? Kristen?
My one concern is that as hell of money be obtained for this trip, fundraisers will be offered. Otherwise, each dancer is responsible. I want to make sure that every effort is made, that all students who have qualified to go are able to pay for it, whether it's through community actions or other things. I would hate to see someone not be able to attend because it is a costly trip. You're muted.
Opportunities so that if there are families in need, that they can raise the money to do that, so that everyone who would like to attend would like to attend. That would be the request of the teams as well.
Okay. Is there any contingencies for COVID?
The insurance purchased.
I didn't see anything.
Insurance, that's health and tax.
Are there any contingencies for COVID?
We would go through all those processes in terms of COVID, but there is some deposits that do need to be made this week that are non-refundable, so that would be a factor.
Okay.
Are we purchasing travel insurance in that regard?
Tournament? Or at the excuse me.
Badgerette may have some. We would follow whatever the Badgerette guidelines or Disney World would have for our teams.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Are the teams gonna be traveling together then and competing as one large team, or are they gonna be competing individually still? Because we have two different action
Be
items.
separate. Badgerette makes the arrangement for travel, so it is possible they could be traveling together, but that would just shake out how the travel does sort out through the organization.
So then are they also competing separately too? I didn't- I'm just confused by the two different items. Are they also competing separately from each other, Central and Hale?
Justin, are Central and Hale also going to be meeting separately?
Can that question be repeated?
Central and Hale, will they be meeting separately while they're down there?
Yeah, they would be traveling as separate teams. They have done a lot of things over the last few years together, performing at dances, so that opportunity would exist, and they've kind of done that when appropriate to be together, and then when competing to be separate.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, so we have these two items that we'll take separately, but we'll take them sequentially. So I would look for a motion on item 10.1.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll move on to item 10.2, which is the Nathan Hale High School Pom Dance Team extended travel to Orlando, Florida in February 2022. Already had discussion. Is there any further comments or questions? If not, I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Last minute discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item 10.3, our retiree medical and pharmacy benefits for age 65 and over. Revised language, Ms. Whitler.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. So this one's going to be a lot shorter than last time, and I'll just give a quick update on how it relates to what we talked through last time. So when we met on the 13th, the language that was approved for retirees who were 65 and over was that if there was a spouse in the plan, we would have to wait till both the retiree and the spouse turned 65 to move on to the Anthem plan. And we had discussion about it would be very beneficial for both parties if that could happen sooner, if one of them turned 65. The official language that was in the executive summary was that they both had to be 65. So I know there was a little bit of confusion at the end about that, but what was actually approved, that was in the language, was that they both had to be, a retiree and spouse had to be 65 before they could move on to the Anthem Medicare Advantage plan. So we, after our discussion, we worked through with WEA Trust what language we could revise from our September 13th approved change to this Medicare Advantage plan. And WEA came back with basically half an option. So what we will be approving tonight is that the revised language would be such that if a spouse of a retiree reaches age 65 first, then that spouse would move to the Anthem medical plan once they reach 65, and then the retiree would stay on the WEA Trust medical plan until they themselves reach age 65 and could also then move over to the Anthem plan. We cannot do it the vice versa way because a non-employee cannot be on our WEA plan. So what would happen if a retiree turned 65 first would be, if they were able to move over to the Anthem plan, would mean their spouse or a non-employee would be on the WEA plan, which is not allowable per WEA. The only time that is allowable in any of our procedures is if a spouse has if a retiree has a surviving spouse benefit, meaning if a retiree is on our plan with a spouse and that retiree passes away and has a surviving spouse benefit, that retiree becomes the main subscriber. That's the only time that a non-employee could be on our WEA insurance plan as the main subscriber. So as such, the only time we could have a spouse or retiree, once either of them reaches age 65, move without both of them moving is only the case in which a spouse turns 65 first. So that's what the approved language would be for tonight. So if a spouse turns 65 first of a retiree, that spouse moves on to the Anthem medical plan, and then once the retiree reaches age 65, they themselves would also move on to the plan. If a retiree reaches age 65 first, they will stay on the WEA plan with their spouse until both people reach age 65, at which time they would both then move over onto the Anthem plan. So that is based on our discussion that we had, that it would be beneficial for both the retirees and for our school district to move on as soon as they could, and so this is the best we can do in terms of reaching age 65. Any questions?
Does this significantly impact our savings?
There would be about 20 people additionally who would be able to move on sooner, meaning the spouse is already age 65.
Oh.
That's compared to so we're saving more money?
So we would be
The calculation
saving-
was made last time based off of both having to do it?
Yes, yep. So there's 20 additional people who would be able to add on to our savings for immediate savings. And a lot of these are like, within the next couple of months or at some point soon that they would be turning age 65, where both of them would be then reaching age 65. So we could add 20 people's worth of savings within our numbers, and that was a point in time savings. So people are going to continue to turn age 65 as we move forward. So from the numbers that we saw at the September 13th meeting, we would be able to add a savings of about 20 additional people. And I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I could get them.
Okay. Any other questions? Now I would look for a motion.
So moved. I got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill, I didn't see that.
Because my wife is a current employee, is this something that I would have to abstain from? No?
Only if she's over 65.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure.
I will be recusing.
Yes, Jeff. All right. Any other questions? If not, I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Someone still got a second it, yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any last minute discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And one recusal. All right, that
Thank you very
passes.
much.
All right, so now we are going to adjourn the regular board meeting. And do I have to ask for motion? I need a motion for that.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and now we need to reconvene as a committee of the whole. Motion for that? Need a motion for that as well.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, we're gonna do a roll call.
Aye.
Roll call vote, right?
Or just a roll call to see
Who's
who's in
here?
attendance.
Okay.
So, Mrs. Justin, I don't believe was able to join remotely, so I'm marking her excused. Mrs. Kaiser,
Here.
Mr. Sikich,
Present.
Mr. Burns,
Here.
Mrs. Carr,
Here.
Mr. Keller,
Here.
Mr. Eustruck,
Here.
Ms. Steele,
Here.
President Lee.
Here. All right, so we are looking to take action to move the policy changes that we discussed a month ago, which is policy 167.3 to full board for consideration. And so that's item 12.2. There have been no additional changes made to this policy from the last time that we discussed it. Dr. Lexman, are you going to introduce this?
When we first brought the proposed revisions forward, one of the ideas was to limit public comments to only items on that particular board meeting agenda. And the board did not support that, that's part of the process. So that's where we are. So that language is no longer in the proposed revisions. The only thing that is still included is a speaker can only speak one time per meeting. And then it limits the who is eligible to speak, but it's a pretty broad group. And I don't think we've ever had anybody outside of that group come and speak. But I think that language makes some sense to me to limit that if we get into the place where, things are hyper politicized these days and we start getting momentum around a particular topic and people from all over the place start showing up at board meetings, at least we're able to keep it to the conversation of, students, parents of students, potential students, residents, taxpayers, business owners, is what that's intended to do. The reason this is in committee of the whole again, so that was in the executive summary, and those 4 steps, they were written by Claire and Dan Vliet, so our attorneys. And so our current mechanisms now are if we're going to change bylaws, it goes into committee of the whole, gets worked on, and then it has to get forwarded from the committee of the whole to the full board, and then it finally gets approved. So we're in that step 3 of those 4 steps. And if there are no other revisions tonight, that's exactly what we'll bring back for the board's consideration at our next regular meeting in October.
Okay, so as Dr. Lexman said, there's 2 steps we're going to take tonight. One would be for us to approve the amended policy, and then the second step would be to then basically move that to the full board for consideration at our next regular board meeting, which is when it would be officially approved. But before we get to that point, does anyone have any questions or comments about this? If not, I would look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. So we'll move on to item 12.3. I don't know if Dr. Lexman wants to say anything else about that, but essentially what this is going to be doing is referring the revised policy, 167.3, public participation of board meetings, as a second reading to the full board for approval. Dr. Lexman, is there anything else you want to say? Is that the no? You're good? Okay, great. All right, so everyone understands what that is? Okay. If there's no discussion, I look for a motion.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. And then I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.